各位来威家人，大家晚上好，很开心又到了每周四的光科技运用的时间，与大家在线上相会。无论你现在这个时间是在家里还是在下班的途中，先给自己一个掌声，因为你愿意停下来投资一点时间在学习，在成长。过去2周我们一起看了创办人的访谈精华，在第1集当中 David 和我们分享他创业的初心，从一位发明家到选择用直销来推广这一份光科技。在第2集他谈到了使命还有愿景，带我们看见 LifeWave 如何放眼未来，跨世代传承的这份力量。那么今天来到了第3集，我们将会听到更深入的内容，他如何在科学以及市场当中找到了一个平衡，他对 AI 和人本的看法是什么呢？还有在国际市场上面的运作的这一个智慧，以及在直销的未来的期待。今天一样，我们会用一段影片、一段简报的方式来进行。然后呢，我们希望大家能够在聊天室尽情的互动以及讨论。准备好了吗？那我们就从第1段影片开始。
Another thing I want to mention, I think that probably everybody listening now has been able to experience and understand there's a lot of heavy science. There's a lot of innovation happening there that you're leading at LifeWave. And I think one of the many superpowers you have is the ability to take these complex scientific and technological concepts and distill them down and make them very approachable and understandable, and without losing the audience, which a lot of times we've all sat through science presentations, at least for me, coming from a marketing background and not a science or math background, concepts can kind of go over my head. But you present it in such a way that it's easy to understand. It's easy to connect. It's easy to be inspired by. And I'm curious in your leadership style and approach, how you've been able to balance that approach with such deep science and such deep technology around the products, but also the motivation, the inspiration to a huge sales force. How have you been able to kind of balance and have both of those dynamics work so well together?
Well, I really love sales and marketing. At my core, I want to be an inventor. But when I was in college and after I graduated, I had to survive by taking sales jobs, and then I was building my own businesses. So that involved learning sales and marketing and trying to be good at it. And so I've always had to have a balance and a blend between the two. So when I go at product development, it's always with the thought of, well, what am I really trying to do here? What type of benefit are people going to get out of this technology? So I kind of start with the marketing side and be thinking about ultimately, why are people going to buy this? And then on the development side, you think about how do you structure the clinical studies so that you can ultimately support those claims. But it really will come down to an overarching goal. So the overarching goal is, how can we stop and hopefully even reverse human aging? That's the goal. So that would be something that would be highly saleable and highly marketable to people. So now the question is, okay, how are we going to get there? And in our case, we spent many, many years investigating species that don't age. So this is, in science, we call this biomimicry or biomimetics. And it's the idea that we can look at tardigrades, planaria, hydractinia. We can look at these species and say, okay, we know these species aren't aging. The question is, can we learn something from them so we can apply it to human beings? And in this particular case, very fortunate is that we were studying lobsters when I discovered a biological code in lobsters that was responsible for their longevity. And fortunately, we were able to create technology to duplicate that. And now what we found through our clinical studies is that this does, in fact, have an extraordinary effect on human beings. So all these things kind of have to, line up together, but ultimately you really have to establish what is it that you're trying to achieve. And, stopping human aging, I think most people would probably dismiss that and said, yeah, of course that would be great, but, you're never going to get there. But in fact, in this particular case, I think we will.
No, that's really exciting. Again, it's always impressive to see how always whenever the science or health benefits are presented, the business benefits to the brand partners in the field are always presented as well. So, it's not just product benefits for health's sake, but more of that holistic approach to both sides of the house with the product and the business opportunity side, I think is always amazing.
大家刚刚看到 David 的分享，他从一开始做产品研发，就不只是从科学家的思维开始而已，而是先会去想人们为什么需要，市场真正的痛点是什么。这就是为什么他在做研究的过程当中，不只是停留在发现龙虾的长寿基因，而是会进一步去问，这样的发现能不能帮助人类延缓老化，能不能让我们过得更健康。科学要走进市场，需要被看见、被看懂、用得上，这就是创新跟需求的结合。如果你可以把这一份健康奇迹带给身边最重要的人，你会选择什么呢？
Now, I know a big part of your innovation strategy centers around AI, and that you're literally getting it into every aspect of the business and leveraging it in some really interesting ways. One of the impressive things is you always speak about it in very human-centric terms. Obviously, this is going to be very disruptive to a lot of people, a lot of industries, a lot of jobs. But you have always described it as kind of a tool to help humans, to help us be more effective. But it even goes into your hiring strategy. Do you mind sharing a little bit how you're approaching the disruptive nature of AI with this human-centric approach?
I would credit Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek for this. There's an old, as you know, we were blessed to have William Shatner speak at our 20th anniversary event, along with Doug Drexler, who's won 2 Academy Awards for Star Trek design. He's worked on Star Trek for 40 years. In the original Star Trek series, there was an episode called The Ultimate Computer. And they had taken this advanced, they didn't call it AI at the time, but that's effectively what it was. They had taken this very advanced AI computer, they connected it to the Enterprise, and it was essentially replacing the captain and a number of other people on the ship and making all these decisions, and they found out that it was extremely efficient. And there's a scene where Captain Kirk says, well, what do you think about this, Spock? I'm paraphrasing, this might be practical. And Spock says something along the lines of, it's practical but undesirable. Computers make excellent servants, but I have no wish to serve underneath one. And I think that's a good lesson, is that if we go so far down the AI trail, we all may end up working underneath them. And I don't think that is ever going to be a good thing. So computers make excellent tools, but nonetheless, they are tools, and they should be used that way with people in control. So when we think about how do we want to use AI in customer service, I would say that would be a good example. We're implementing AI, and what we will do to improve job satisfaction is, instead of firing highly trained customer service people, we're going to move them over into an outbound customer service. So now they can be developing relationships with the brand partners and improving brand partners' experience with the company. So they'll be in an outreach program. When we look at order fulfillment, we look at integrating AI and robotics. And so this will be so we can have 24/7 order fulfillment. It's not going to be to replace existing staff. They'll be in a supervisory role. And as a matter of fact, we'll give our order fulfillment staff an opportunity to learn about robotics, how to service these machines, and how to work with them. But I don't want to run a company where we're replacing human beings with machines or AI. It's a mistake, and that's not something I want to do.
Oh, I think that's such a beautiful approach. And I know with the rapid continued evolution and advancement of AI, as well as adoption, I know a lot of companies feel like they're behind. They don't know exactly where they should be and what they should be doing. Where do you feel that companies should be at today? What should they be focused on today? And then as you look out a few years, where should the focus, or the evolution be at that point?
So AI is progressing so rapidly that generally anyone that tells you they know what's going to happen with AI in 3 or 5 years is they don't know what they're talking about, or they're kidding themselves, because it's just progressed too quickly. So I would say it would be important to have someone on staff that's just looking at and focusing on AI and all of the different apps. And it's one of these things where it's important to just get started. So there's already, of course, some great tools, which are text to image converters, and some of those things can be used. We have an individual who was creating graphics for Hollywood movies that we've been working with on a consulting basis. And one of the projects that we have for him in 2025 is to be looking at programs like OpenAI Sora, and how can we use some of these text to video programs for integrating into the video work that we're doing. We have a robotics initiative that we're doing with our IT department to be looking at, okay, over the next year, there's new robotics that are coming out. How could we potentially integrate that into what it is that we're doing? So I think first it's important to have someone on staff that is leading the way on AI. And then every single department needs to be evaluated, and department heads need to take ownership on this and say, okay, we are going to use some of these new AI tools, but let's say, make sure that we're doing things in a sensible fashion. So for companies, I think, that feel that they're behind, I wouldn't worry about that so much, as long as you kind of get started and start to become familiar with the tools that do exist, and knowing that a year from now, those tools could be obsolete and you're already looking at new ones.
在 AI 的议题上面 ，David 的立场非常清楚。AI 不是来替代人的，而是来帮助人。像客服不是裁员，而是让他从客服人员转型去做主动关怀。仓储也不会失业，而是呢培养这一个员工去学习机器维护，升级成一个监督者。这是一种以人为本的 AI 应用，因为它的价值观里面，公司的存在不是牺牲人来换取效率，而是用科技来成就人。AI 发展太快，没有人能够准确的预测3年、5年后会是怎样。David 的提醒是要我们不要害怕落后，重点是要赶快先开始。莱威已经要求各部门都要有人负责研究 AI 工具，哪怕这些工具1年后会被淘汰，但因为先熟悉、先应用，公司呢才能够保持在一个浪潮之上。这一点我们的团队也很有启发哦。学习不需要等最完美的教材出现才开始，边做边学才是赢家的心态。你认为我们的团队最先应用哪些部分在 AI 方面呢？欢迎跟我们互动哦。
Yeah, with the innovation, kind of that culture of innovation you've created, it's been really impressive to see how the AI plan and strategy is part of each department's strategy here internally. Everybody has it as part of their plan, current, as well as future state. And I found that very interesting, that it's just already top of mind across literally every department at the company. It's really impressive as part of the culture you've created here. So I'd love to get your thoughts a little bit on kind of international expansion. You've been able to expand into a lot of markets. That's been, part of, or at least one of the variables and factors in the growth. Can you talk about as you have approached international expansion, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what are some of the key lessons learned?
We had an enormous amount of pressure years ago to open in China. And I just kept seeing all these landmines. And I thought, I don't want to rush in. This looks like a real problem to me. There are all these red flags that were coming up. And fortunately, we didn't get involved in China, and a lot of other companies had massive problems. And in fact, when we've spoken with brand partners today, they'll ask, are you going into China? And my response is no, doesn't make sense. And they're like, oh, I'm glad to hear that, because other companies are getting killed there. So I would say in that case, brand partners are not pushing China the way that they used to. On the positive side, I'll use Taiwan as an example. We opened Taiwan in 2008, and for many years, we would do just over $1 million a year. We weren't really making any money, and we were losing money. But I was looking at the long-term potential, and I thought, okay, if we're going to stay in there. I don't think we're going to get a second shot at this. I don't want to leave and then try to come back in later. So it's far better to keep the investment, even if you're losing money year over year, and showing people that you're serious about supporting the market. And what happened was incredible. That strategy definitely was noticed by a number of the leaders in Taiwan. And when X39 came out, the leaders unified and they said, well, LifeWave's been supporting us all of this time. Now it's time for us to work together. We've got this one opportunity. Let's build the business. And now Taiwan is LifeWave is in the top 30 largest network marketing companies in Taiwan, but it was because we stayed committed to the market. So I would say being able to avoid some of the landmines in international would be really important. You'd save time and money. And then once you decide to go into a market, be committed to the market, even if it doesn't go in the direction that you hope, because you may not get another shot at it. And I think that brand partners are looking for those red flags. Is this company really committed into our market or not? And you want to be there to say, yeah, we've been here for years. We're not going anywhere.
各位，这一段我想特别带大家细细的聆听，因为 David 在访谈当中亲口提到台湾，他说在多年前，几乎所有人都在催促公司进入中国市场，但他看到的是满满的风险，最后他选择不跟从这个潮流，而选择拒绝这个看似很庞大的市场。可是对台湾，他的选择完全不同。2008年，莱威选择台湾作为他海外分公司第一家。多年来，其实营业额是持续亏损的。换做一般的企业，可能早就撤出了。但 David 说，如果现在离开，就不会再有第二次机会。于是他选择留下，选择在没有获利的情况下继续支持台湾，因为他要让台湾的伙伴们知道，莱威是真的把这里当成家，不会轻易放弃。也因为这份坚持，终于等到了 X39 上市，迎来了大爆发。台湾的领导人们说，公司一直支持我们，现在该我们团结起来了。就在这样的一个团结的力量结合之下，台湾的市场一口气冲进了直销的前15大。各位，这不只是一个数字，这是一份彼此信任以及守候。David 坚持不放弃台湾，而台湾的伙伴们也用行动交出了最美的回应。你听到这里有什么样的感觉？有什么样的触动？欢迎在聊天室与我们一起互动哦。
Yeah, that is such a thoughtful approach that has served the company really well. And I know the trust, when you make that long-term commitment to a market, when you see the potential, you're in there for strategic reasons, not just because you got pulled in maybe by a leader, but you build such great trust that when kind of it's time for that market to really start growing, that you start seeing those benefits. That's a really important approach. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on a little bit looking back and a little bit looking forward with just a few more questions. So looking back across the incredible, the amazing 20 years, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you founded LifeWave, what do you think that would be?
That it's important each and every day to have a life of prayer. That ultimately you want to have rely on God's plan and find out, how can I do the most good in the world? And really turn that over to God. Because ultimately, if your company doesn't represent being a positive force for good in the world, then it may not be a worthwhile venture. You want to be able to stand on stage in front of your community and in all sincerity talk about all of the good that you're doing in the world. The world is a better place because of LifeWave. The world's a better place because of what it is that we're doing. And in their hearts, they know it's true because there's evidence of that. So I would say that really has to be the focus, is where does this company fit in the world, and how can we do the most good? And, they say only God is good. So it's important to, turn to God in prayer and then look for that guidance. So, and then I think the other thing I would say to my younger self is it's going to be a long, hard journey, but everything is going to be okay. Everything, you'll go through a lot of ups and downs. You'll be put through the fire. Keep doing what you're doing. This is what you're meant to do with your life. And, you're going to become a better person through the process, despite some of the difficulties. So, but that said, I wouldn't change a thing, because otherwise I might not be where I am today. So, but yeah, I think those would be some important lessons.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes it's the challenging times, I think, that we learn the most, and that helps build us and turn us into the people that we need to be to accomplish the task at hand.
主持人问 David， 如果能给20年前自己一个建议，他会是什么呢？他说，他会每天祈祷，把使命交托给上帝。因为公司若不能成为世界的正面力量，那就没有存在的价值。对他来说，领导不是先赚钱再说，而是带给人们希望、疗愈，财富自然会跟随。这就是为什么他说领导人最重要的是爱跟承担。像我自己，就因为这光科技开启了身心灵的能量，所以也希望把这一份爱跟改变传递给更多的人。您也是否也有像这样子的一个信念，想要传递给更多的人呢？ AI 以及自动化会取代大量的工作，甚至像 IBM 这样子的一个大公司，也因为 AI 裁掉了非常多的员工。这代表未来有更多的人需要新的收入方式，而直销将会成为他们的选择之一。David 相信LifeWave已经准备好了，因为我们有專利、產品、創新的模式，在未來的浪潮當中站穩腳步。
Kind of along those same lines as it relates to leadership, building an organization, leading an organization, hiring, within that, what do you feel from a kind of a purely leadership standpoint is one of the great lessons that you've learned over the last 20 years?
You really have to love and care for the people that you work with, as well as the brand partners, and think about their situation and where is it that they're trying to get to, and how can you help them get there. So as a leader in the company, I think about, how can I provide a stable business, one that's safe, that people can call their home, that they feel good, about putting their time and hard work and energy into, and have this be a really rewarding experience, and have people know that what they're doing is making a difference. So with our leaders and our brand partners, when they're applying our products to people and they see these transformations that occur, they know that they've done something great in the world, and they're going to build a business and earn money, as a consequence of that, not the opposite, not that they're earning money and they're trying to sell people products. No, it's about, we want to make a difference in the world. We want to offer hope. We want to offer healing. And as a consequence of those actions, we're going to be able to build a business as a result. So I think culturally, that's really important for leaders, that we be thinking about how can we help and support the people around us. And then I think everything else takes care of itself.
Well, I can personally attest to the impact that approach has, on the individual level, me as being a member of the LifeWave team, as well as it has on the entire organization. And kind of drafting off that a little bit, looking at the broader channel outside of the company, you've been an incredible champion for the business model, for direct selling itself. As you look out over the next 3 to 5 years, again, the landscape is changing so rapidly, for all of us in direct selling. What excites you most about the future of direct selling?
It's going to be absolutely huge. And I'll tell you why, is that other companies are not going to adopt the same philosophy about robotics and AI that we are. And it's already happened with companies like IBM. One of my friends worked for IBM for 40 years, and they laid him off. They laid off 6,000 people when they integrated a new AI system. And these public companies are going to be thinking about using AI to cut costs, improve the bottom line, improve profitability, and improve stock value. And again, this is, I get it, but I think it's a very short-sighted vision. So what this means is that you're going to get hundreds of thousands, millions of people that are going to be looking for work, and they have to support their families and themselves. So they have to turn to the gig economy, and direct selling is going to be one of the options that they have for earning an income. So the question is, can we provide an opportunity where they can come in, earn money quickly, and support themselves and their family? So that's kind of the challenge. So I certainly believe that LifeWave is perfectly positioned to take advantage of this shift that's coming with AI and robotics. And now it's really up to, my message to the industry is, we've got to innovate. We have to produce products and services that are patented and that you can't find anyplace else. So in our case, we've got patented health and wellness technology. We have drone technology. We have power generation technology. And I'm intending to build LifeWave into a multi-billion-dollar organization so that 10, 20 years from now, we're still healthy, and we're growing, and we're doing really, really well. But it all stems from innovation, and then looking at what are the current trends, and then being prepared to take advantage of them.
That's wonderful. I think that's the perfect idea to end on today. I really do think the future of commerce generally is going to be social. It's going to be direct. And so I agree with you. We're perfectly positioned to take advantage of this, but we do have to do the right things to ensure relevancy, like making sure we're innovating, that we're patenting our products, that there are these exclusive, ownable, differentiated aspects to the channel as a whole. Dave, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights, your expertise, and thank you for giving all of us in direct selling an incredibly inspiring example of growth and innovation.
Absolutely.
So here's to the next 20 years, David.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
这3周我们一起走过了 David 的故事，从第1集他的初心，一个发明家 因为911的这一个震动，把他一生投入在真正可以帮助人类的创新。在第2集，我们听见了他的使命还有愿景，不只是一家公司，而是他要创造一份可以传承世代的蓝图。在第3集，我们看见了他的智慧以及信念，如何在科学以及市场当中找到平衡，如何以人本拥抱 AI， 如何坚持国际市场，最后用信念和爱带领团队。3集的访谈让我们看见了一个完整的创办人，一个科学家的眼光，一个企业家的胆识，一个领导人的胸襟，也有着一个信仰者的谦卑。最让我们感动的是他对台湾的选择。当年公司明明连年亏损， David 却说如果现在离开，再也没有第2次机会了。他选择留下，而今天我们刚好就有这份没有放弃的见证，可以非常好的来感谢他。所以这3集的访谈其实是给我们3个提醒。第一，你为什么开始？你的初心还有梦想是什么？第二，你愿意坚持多久？你的信念还有承诺是什么？第三，你要把这份光带到哪里？你有怎么样的使命以及未来？最后，我想邀请大家一起来遇见光，成为光，分享光。谢谢大家这3周的参与，感恩，也欢迎大家每周4都在这光世代应用篇能够一起来学习，一起相聚。拜拜。
我会从其后